Oh god, I'm gonna get this over with quick because this chair is not good for my back. Gen 5 was so amazing to me, and I was so hyped for X and Y, not just because of the fact that it's a 3D Pokemon game, though that certainly didn't help. It was a 3D Pokemon game. I liked some of the new designs. At first I didn't like Froakie. Everyone else was so, was rooting for, like, Froakie. Everyone really loved Froakie, which is weird because I didn't really like Froakie at first. But I sort of, like Oshawott actually. Oshawott was the starter I chose when I first played Black and White. I didn't like Oshawott at first, but when I saw Samurott and saw how badass it looked, I was like, Oshawott itself started to grow on me. And it started, now I think Oshawott is a really cool Pokemon. Same thing happened with Froakie actually, it's weird, but anyway. Generation 6, I talked about a lot. I have 2 impressions videos of it, but don't go back and watch the first one because it's a half an hour long for the wrong reasons. Try having an impressions video where I don't edit out my ums and uhs and anything like that. It's about as painful as, well, exactly what I just mentioned. So, I talked about X and Y in the past, so I'm not going to go over too much of it here, because I kind of want to end this, but I will say this about X and Y is that I do like X and Y, a lot more than most people do. I'll say that about it. I know a lot of people have mixed reactions. X and Y is probably one of the most polarizing Pokemon games since Generation 3, honestly, but the remake sort of cleaned it up, so now everyone likes Gen 3. And I'll be honest, even I'll admit, I kind of like Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire more, because Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire had a more interesting world. It had better 3D graphics in my opinion. Not to say that, you know, it looked better than X and Y, but I love the dynamic camera angles they were able to do. It showed off more of the world in a cooler way. And not to mention, I just thought, well, yeah, the Hoenn region is annoying to travel through. It's more interesting to travel through than Kalos, which is not very interesting. That's my main problem with X and Y, is that Kalos is not an interesting region. The characters are, they really try to make them interesting, and I do like some of them. I like the main 3 characters. I like that they give you a nickname, and you can actually choose that nickname. I like that. I chose Seameister myself, but I like that. I, of course, like that they give you a Lucario as your first Mega Evolution. Lucario is my favorite Pokemon. I was very happy to see that. You know, so, good on you, Nintendo. Good on you. With that said, though, I will admit, my problem with X and Y was, I do love the variety in Pokemon. I do like going back to X and Y, because I went back to it a couple of times, mainly because I love how customizable you can make your team. But my main problem is that the region itself isn't interesting. It doesn't have its own identity. It played it safe. You will probably realize this if you played the previous games, but X and Y rips off a lot of what the previous games did. And I know you could argue, well, it's the first 3D game, they want to keep things familiar, and that's why I'm not angry at it. It wanted to keep things familiar for the sake of making fans comfortable. But at the same time, even I'll admit, it's not something that I like. And a lot of people I know hate X and Y for some of the stuff it brought, for how boring the region was, and Mega Evolution. Everyone hates Mega Evolution. I'm not really sure why. I like Mega Evolutions. I'm indifferent towards them, honestly. I like them. Like, when they're good, they're good. And that was my phone. I don't know if you heard it in the background. But when it comes to X and Y, honestly, I'm cool with it. I'm fine with Mega Evolutions. I will admit some of the designs are stupid. Like Mega Salamance's design looks awful. It looks awful. I'm sure Mega Salamence is a fine Pokemon to use. It's just I hate the design of it. But there are some that are good, like Mega Lucario and the starters. I love Mega Charizard X, but even I'll admit I raised an eyebrow when I saw Mega Charizard got 2 Mega Evolutions. That was stupid to me. I was like, well, you're giving Charizard that? I mean, I know Charizard's, don't get me wrong, I love Charizard, alright? Charizard, like, when it comes to my favorite Pokemon per generation, here it is right up front. I'm not going to explain why, I'm just going to tell you. Charizard's my favorite from Generation 1. Generation 2 would probably have to be Tyranitar or Typhlosion, one of those two. Generation 3 would probably have to be... Generation 3, it's a tough one. It's not because I don't like Generation 3, it's because there are some really good choices. I don't know, Bland won Blaziken. It's probably going to be different from that later on, but actually, no, I do like Absol. I always had a fascination with Absol. Generation 4, it's obviously Lucario. He's my favorite Pokemon of all time, of course he is. And when it comes to Generation 6, or Generation 5, I should say, Generation 5 would probably be Zekrom, with a close second being, I don't know, Samurott and Krokorok, because they were really good Pokemon. And there are so many other good choices in Gen 5 I think of right now. I just have Gen 5 on the mind, and now I want to go back and play it. But when it comes to Generation 6, when it comes to, how do I put this? I forgot what I was going to say now, damn it. When it comes to Generation 6, I feel it was very safe. It did a lot of things that previous games did. There's a Snorlax in the middle of the road. There's a rival that is based off of the other player character. There are rivals that are challenging you to different things. You have a team that is in every Pokemon game, but anyway, it stayed very safe. It didn't really break away, and another thing that I didn't like was that usually the gym leaders are interesting in some aspect. We usually get to see them, see what they do, maybe besides just be gym leaders. Gen 5 was really good with this because we got to see, essentially we had a fashion model, we had an owner of a museum, we had waiters, we had a pilot, we had a digger, we had so many, the gym leaders they weren't just their gimmicks, they had their own personality too. But they had jobs, they had lives, they had stuff they wanted to do, they had other hobbies that, besides just being, gym leaders, they were interesting. I'm not going to say they were fully three-dimensional characters, but they were interesting. The gym leaders in here, they don't really have any personality, besides Malva. I like Malva because she's interesting, because she used to be a part of Team Flare. And that's interesting, but that's all there is. I like Malva, but that's all she has. Everyone else is, bland as hell. Really fucking bland. Their anime counterparts are more interesting than them in the games, which is usually the opposite. So, not to mention, the journey was just very familiar, and not in a good way. It got dull at points. Another thing that people don't like is besides Mega Evolution being everyone's biggest issue, which again I'm indifferent towards Mega Evolution. I don't mind it. Another main issue is the experience share. Now personally, I like it because it keeps me from grinding, and anything that makes it so grinding isn't a pain is A-okay in my book. But it breaks the game. I'm not going to act like it doesn't. It fucking destroys any form of challenge X and Y can muster up. X and Y is the easiest in the series by far. I'm not gonna say Pokemon was hard, but there were moments of difficulty. Remember Whitney's Miltank? Remember Morty and how annoying his Dream Eater Gengar was? Remember the second half of Heart Gold Soul Silver, and that was actually pretty challenging. Remember Red? Remember Cynthia? She was a pretty challenging champion, at least from what I heard. I haven't actually done that. Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire has this problem as well, though it's a lot more widespread in X and Y because of the variety. And X and Y, you can just break in two. I'm not gonna say it's as broken as the first generation. No, of course not. They're technically wise, it's a technically sound game. It had a few bugs when it came out, but they were patched very quickly. That's how most games work nowadays, which I fucking hate, but X and Y was not the biggest offender of that. Assassin's Creed Unity! Oh, God, I gotta work on that cough. But still, regardless, oh God, those two came out the same year, I just realized that. Anyway, X and Y is painfully easy, and some people even say it's boring. I wouldn't go that far, because I still had fun, but even I'll admit, it's way too easy if you use the experience share. Now I know you make the argument, it's like, well, just turn it off then. You can just turn off the damn thing. It's like, yeah, you're right, you can turn it off, but you can turn it off, but the game is still pretty easy in its own right. I know people who did that, and the game to them was still pretty damn easy. So doesn't really work that much. Gym leaders themselves aren't that hard either. Their Pokemon, quite frankly, kind of suck. And I literally one-shotted every Pokemon that most gym leaders brought against me. And the Elite Four, by God. Okay, the Elite Four usually are really challenging. Gen 5 had a good Elite Four. Gen 4, from what I heard, had a good Elite Four. And even Gen 3, and even the Gen 3 remakes had a good Elite Four. Granted, yeah, they were not nearly as challenging as they probably were in the original games, mainly because of the experience share, but at least they had something. I don't know what they could do to balance it. Maybe they could nerf some of its effects, which I personally don't want, because I actually I do like that. Personally, what I think they should do, buff the trainers. And I know you could argue, well, then you would have to use the experience share. Does it really matter? If you are on an equal playing field with the experience share, fine. And I know you could argue, well, then it's not optional. Well, then you can grind. Or better yet, they could just ditch the experience share as a key item and just use Aldino grinding, which I personally think was just fine. I didn't really need the experience share. I felt Aldino grinding was perfectly fine as is. There are a couple of improvements. In fact, gameplay-wise, I do think X and Y and Gen 6 as a whole is the best. In the sense that they did balance a couple of things. They brought in a new fairy type, which really nerfed those pesky dragons. Poison types now have something that they are stronger against. And since fairy types are actually pretty decent, that's actually pretty good. You know, they brought a new evolution, which I like, and I know a lot of people don't like Mega Evolution, but it's nice that they only limited it to one. Like, he's essentially your main party Pokemon, like, he's your strongest Mon, and it's kind of like, I think it's perfectly fine as is. I know there are imbalances. There will always be imbalances with Pokemon. It's never going to be perfectly balanced. The tiers are never going to go away. I know. But it was nice that they did focus on it. Also, another thing I really like, super training. They made it so much easier to experiment with EVs and IVs, and they made it so much easier to breed for Pokemon with really good IVs or near perfect IVs. And EV training was so much easier, and I like that. That's really nice too. You also can get some decent rewards from it as well, so it's worth it just to do that instead of going through the tedium. You can still do it the old way, but it's much easier doing super training. And I like how they streamlined a lot of things. But, you know, it still took work and effort, but they streamlined it, which is good. I like that. In fact, I do think X and Y and Omega Ruby, again, have the best system because of that. But I will admit that the experience share breaks the remakes of Gen 3 and X and Y, just breaks them because you're so overpowered. And the Elite Four was no challenge at all. They were nothing. They were pathetic. One aspect I didn't really touch upon in my videos, I don't think I did anyway, was that you customize your trainer now. I'm gonna be honest, I was a bit mixed on it. Not because I didn't like the idea. No, the idea is amazing. And I like that they do have a lot of customability, but I would have liked it more if you could customize your trainer more. Like, customize the body type. Maybe make your trainer... I know this sounds awful, but maybe make your trainer fat. Or, like, change the body type. They gave you, like, a body type that was standard, and whatever you chose, like, you could choose, you know, your skin color and your starting. They gave you something to start the game with, and it was limited. It still has limitations. Also, why can't you take off your hat? That is so stupid. Why can't you take off your hat? Is every Pokemon trainer required to have a hat? So, I don't understand that. Why can't you do that? So, I like it. They need to do more with it, though, which I'm hoping Sun and Moon does, since they're bringing back the customization. Omega Ruby doesn't have customization, if you're wondering why I'm not talking about that. They're probably still in the game. They're probably they're leftovers from X and Y, since it's the same engine. But, they didn't actually have that because it's a remake. I also talked about this in my videos previously, so I won't spend too much time on it here, but the narrative was awful. Like, it's like happy-go-lucky journey with Pokemon and rivals and a team that acted so silly and goofy. And I actually like Team Flare more than most people, just because personality-wise, they're funny. They talk in this weird way that sounds hip and cool, like they're trying to sound hip and cool, but in reality, it's just like it's funny. it's funny, but then you get into what they're really planning, and you're expected to take them seriously, because it's essentially it's a tonal shift, and one that completely comes out of nowhere. It's essentially a happy adventure with your friends. Some team gets in the way and they act like assholes. 8 people that you don't care about, just you defeat and slaughter their Pokemon. Mega Evolution and some mystery about that, and then genocide. Literally, it's genocide. At the end of it, like, literally, what the fuck did that come from? The tonal shift just hits you like a fucking sledgehammer, and not in a good way. Not that being hit in the sledgehammer is usually good, but usually if they want to punch you in the gut with something tragic and emotional, you gotta pace it well. The pacing in X and Y, story-wise, is awful. It's mainly because of the fact that, story-wise, it just completely comes out of nowhere. You know, there's a plot with AZ and Team Flare. Their plan is to bring back an ancient weapon that was used to end a war, and that was made by AZ. AZ is this mysterious guy that somehow, like, how did he manage to live through all those years? Like, did Arceus come down and as a punishment he gave him immortality? Which, okay, that actually, thinking about knowing what immortality is, that actually is kind of a curse. Did you see everyone you love die, and you don't die yourself, so you can't be with them, if we're going by, anyway, you know the point. I would have liked more clarity on that, and keep in mind, that's just something that I made up. That's not something that the game creators specified. It's unknown, like, they like, pretty much, they tell this really interesting backstory where there's a war between Pokemon and humans, and two clans, and how they were at war with each other, and to end all the bloodshed, AZ created a weapon, and it wiped out a lot of people and Pokemon as well. But, and you know how I'm stuttering and how I'm not really sure exactly, like, all of the details? It's because they keep details from us. Like, it feels like it's written like a prophecy or a legend or a story written by a 3-year-old. It's like, there were Pokemon and people, and they were at war, and death and destruction and devastation, and some douchebag with a Pokemon made a weapon, and it destroyed lots of things, and the Pokemon left him, and cry for me because, like, you know, Pokemon left him. It's really sad, so cry for him because emotional shit, and they're trying to bring the weapon back. Okay, can I have a paycheck now? It felt like that. It was so undercooked and underdeveloped, and I know the Delta episode tried to give more detail into that backstory. It didn't work. It raised more questions than answers. So it just didn't work at all. I don't know. It came out of nowhere. It wasn't explained well, and I can see potential with the story, but it's so out of left field, and the villain is fucking pathetic. Like, not only is he so obviously the bad guy, because he's one of those things, like, he wants the world to be pure and perfect again. He's trying to create a perfect and beautiful world because humanity has poisoned the world. Fuck off, you over-pretentious piece of fucking garbage. Like, by God, you are so fucking pathetic. I always hate those villains that do this kind of shit, because they're just making up excuses to hate on the world. That's all it is. They're fed up with the world they live in, and they go about it the wrong way because they're a whiny little bitch. And that can work if you acknowledge that, but they don't. They play it seriously, and it's so fucking stupid. It's so stupid. I hate that so much. And the Legendary is just shoehorned in there. Right after they did so many great things with Zekrom and Reshiram and Kyurem in the stories of Black and White and Black and White 2, here, the Legendary was captured by Team Flare. Which, I'll give them credit, the team actually captured. But they just throw it in there, and it's like, hey, in order to stop the bad guy from using the super machine, you have to capture Legendary, which the machine goes off anyway. it's so stupid. It's so stupid. X and Y's plot is it's a mess, and it's only because you want to know when they bring this shit in? The last part of the game. The very end of the game is when they actually bring it up. Really? Now you could have spent so long doing this stuff, and I would have liked it if they acknowledged the stupidity of the villain, because again, a villain like this can work if you acknowledge that they're just in denial and they don't like the world they're living in. If you just acknowledge that, but they play it seriously. Some even try and sympathize with him. It's just like, oh my god, this is so fucking pretentious and stupid. And it didn't ruin the game for me, but actually, in truth, it didn't, because I could ignore it, and I could still enjoy Pokemon on its own, but still, it was something that was just like, oh my god, shut up. I hate those kinds of villains sometimes. Again, they can be done well, but they didn't do it well. The foreshadowing, what foreshadowing? It comes out of nowhere, it comes out of left field, they didn't pace it well. AZ does show up early in the game, but he pretty much just says, "Ho. You're a trainer. Oh, you seem interesting." And then he walks away. And you see him again and it's just like, "Oh, cut my fucking wrist. I'm so sad." And just walk away. He just walks. It's like, yeah, that's foreshadowing. Not, damn, that's some good storytelling there. It comes out in left field because they don't build it up well. And his and as for Lance, I forget what the guy, Mr. Evil guy, the Darth Vader of the game, you know, the one with a bunch of flame-looking hair. I forget what his name is, because he's so fucking boring. But he is a villain that they build up that he has this motivation, but he's so obviously the bad guy. We know he's going to be the bad guy in the end. Considering the way Team Flare dressed, I'm surprised people didn't catch on sooner. So, so there's my problems with the narrative. I probably went on longer than I really should have, since I kind of explained most of this stuff, but whatever, I just had to get it off my chest, so, but narrative problems aside, and all the other problems going against it, I do like X and Y. I think the problem with X and Y is that they really wanted to focus on the jump to 3D, and that's what they were focused on. And mechanically wise, it does work well. They kept the speed. It wasn't Pokemon Stadium. Thank God, because Pokemon Stadium was slow as shit with the animations. Thankfully, that's not the case with Pokemon X and Y and Omega Ruby. And it seems like Sun and Moon is keeping that system, which is good. So, as for Sun and Moon, all I can say is I hope it's good. We've been getting a lot of information, so I would try and say some predictions, but honestly, is it really worth it now? The game's coming out in like a month. So, but yeah. Overall, I do enjoy the Pokemon series. I really enjoy the Pokemon series, and I'm really looking forward to Sun and Moon. Despite, my problems with X and Y, I still think it's a good game. I still think it's a competently made game, and you can tell I have no idea how to end this. And that's pretty much all I have to say about the Pokemon series as a whole. Overall, Pokemon series is a really fun time. It's one of my favorite RPG series. Even with some of its lesser entries, it's still at the very least pretty damn good. I will admit X and Y disappointed me a bit, but Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire to me brought it back to the standard I wanted it to be. So, I'm really looking forward to Sun and Moon, hoping it's good. And next time I talk about Pokemon, I'll be talking about Sun and Moon. So, I'll see you guys for that. I'm the Steven235, signing out.